Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back. It's been, a few weeks, years, whatever, whenever you're watching this. And I'm back with a very special guest who will introduce himself now, and then I'll tell you guys the story of how he actually came to this channel and came to Tolkien and the Silmarillion. So, Hax, your introduction.
Hey everybody, I'm Hax Dogma. It's so awesome to be here and talking about the world of Tolkien. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Yay! And Hax, do you prefer Hax or Chris or what is it?
Really, whatever naturally comes to you. Hax. I think, and a lot of the gaming spaces that I'm in, people call me Hax.
Yes, perfect. And Hax has an amazing channel himself. This is how I discovered you, because this is the truth. Hax has the best because I love Westworld. It's literally, it's one of the best shows on TV, especially the first season.
Yeah.
And literally the best TV ever brought out in my mind. And Hax has an amazing channel. So guys, if you're interested in that, please drop by and check out his channel. And I do not know when will Westworld, I mean, they probably can't film right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was some rumor about them filming. I think Jimmy. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, one of the actors posted on Instagram about them filming. Aaron Paul posted about them filming, but there's really no date yet, and all speculation about story and stuff right now. There's so little detail about what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, they always take their sweet time, don't they? Like, I think last time we waited 2.5 years or something like that.
Every time, 2 years plus.
Yeah.
And I just I applaud them for doing it. It's a bold risk, but I mean, you can look at the viewership numbers. I don't know if it's working, and it's not like they're creating like every season's a masterpiece, but season 1 was definitely great. Season 2, awesome, and season 3 was all right.
Season 2 was mainly for me very confusing, but that's another time. All the time. This is how I found your channel very helpful
to
get me through the chaos. But we are here now to talk about the Silmarillion. And funny story, before we start with that is, I don't know if I really made you read it or if you had that wish within yourself already.
You forced it on me. I was like, I'm going to live my life and do other things, and you were just like, no, you must do it. And so I was forced to do it.
That is not true, people. But I'm glad Hax finally read the Silmarillion, and he went through the thing and he asked me a lot of very intelligent questions, and then I was like, I need to talk about this with this man. And so this is why we're here today. And again, this won't be one specific topic. It's more about the beginning of the Silmarillion, so especially the Ainulindale, and about God and the idea behind God and his creations, and a bit philosophical and mythological discussion we want to have today. So yay, I'm excited. So overall, Hax, when you started, what stood out to you besides this is Genesis 2.0?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, the power of music, 100% was like just grab my attention, and it's kind of ambiguous, and there's like kind of magic behind it in other parts of the tale, and people in later parts of the story singing and that having some kind of power, but like, I love this idea of like the creation story being music, right? And it was just such a profound idea. Like, I was just talking to my wife about it this morning, about like, what a beautiful thing. Like, Iluvatar is just like, I want to do this, and I want like people to exist, and I want this story to happen, but I want these aspects of my life of what I have this idea about to exist in different forms, and then I want them to have creativity over how they sing this song, and part of like them doing that and creating everything that happens, and the chaos and beauty, and just what a tale, man. Like, so immediately that was it. That was the first thing I was just like fell in love with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, music is beautiful. I think
Yeah.
we all can agree. This is like, one of our or some of our best memories are connected to music. Isn't that like smell and some visuals, but also music? Like everybody remembers, I don't know, the first time they heard this and this song. This is, like connected and rooted deep within us, music. So it's beautiful that he kind of invented or reinvented God's creation myth, because obviously, this is in a way a monotheistic God, but it's not, God said and there was, and you mentioned this, and I do think he gave them free will, right? I think we can agree on that.
I think
This
so.
is, yeah.
I think
So
I think it's described as like creativity, like he gives them creativity, but I interpreted that as just that, right? Like to be creative, you have to have some degree of free will. And I think like using them interchangeably is awesome. And like it I don't know, it makes more sense if like they have free will, right? Because like we see Melkor and what he does and how he adds to the chaos of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a whole discussion there about determinism and free will as well. But like if he knew that was going to happen, then but yeah.
No, this is what literally is the most intriguing thing to me. Is it like, and this is the main question I have about all this, was this all God's plan? Because that would mean they don't really have free will, right? Because that would mean this is all mapped out. Or is it that he gave them creativity or free will, and therefore, because look, how is somebody like Melkor possible? We know God was not evil, right? He didn't have, this is what Tolkien believed, right? He really believed in the Augustinian philosophy. Sorry, it's quite late. He believed in that, and that means like God was not evil, right? Evil came on men by corruption, blah blah blah, fallen angels, etc. We'll talk about that later. But the Valar are a part of Eru's thoughts, right? This is how they came into being. So if he's not evil, how can somebody like Melkor exist, right? Because he literally was evil from the beginning. Because what did he do? He became more and more evil, but he from the beginning, right from the beginning of his existence, he created discord. So if he's a part of God, if he's a creation of God's thought and he's evil, that doesn't fit, right? So I think he created them with free will.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like, well, I do have a question about terminology. So like, of course, I'm new to this whole thing. So, in the Tolkien community, like, is it okay to refer to them as gods? Because it's like the Ainur or the Valar.
Yeah, the thing is, I would call them demigods. I mean, some people would disagree and say they're angels, but the thing is, they resemble Greek and Roman gods, right?
Yeah.
So
Like I consider them gods. Like looking at their picture, their physical form and stuff. 100%. So I just want to make sure, like, us doing that wasn't like some party foul in the universe or community, but and I think with Melkor, like, him starting off, and I think like, Iluvatar had all of these mixed emotions, right? Like he was the embodiment of all of them, and at the same time, created these things that encompass these thoughts, the good and the bad, and then allowed them to have free will and create for themselves, right? So like, Melkor starts off, like, I really view him as just like the troubled child, right? And maybe he wasn't loved enough. Maybe he like other
Well, he
people
didn't have a partner. It started with that.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, like, dude, like, show him some love, man. Like, but of course, maybe that's the whole point, right? And maybe that kind of takes away from free will. Like, maybe they don't have free will because all of this was deterministic, and he knew what was going to happen, right? Like, hey, this guy clearly troubled. I'm not going to give him a lover, and he's going to create the discord that becomes the world, right?
Could be.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you know, I think he like travels the void, right? When like the other Ainur are, learning how to sing together, and as such, like he doesn't develop the rhythm and blues or jazz or whatever to to understand how to sing with other people. And I think that's also a good analogy for loneliness, and like how we as people
Mhm.
are how that can affect us. Um,
Mhm.
but
And
yeah,
anger, don't you think there's a lot of, and I don't know why, because I think,
true.
well, I have a theory why he's angry, because look, he destroys later on everything the others create. Isn't that like a little, like a small child that
Yeah.
somebody builds a sandcastle and you can't build it, or you didn't have that idea, and then you just go there and smash it, right?
And
This is
yeah,
literally what he
yeah.
did. And that seems very envious and angry.
Well,
Um,
it was too, right? Because he didn't have the sacred flame or the flame unperishable.
imperishable,
Like
yeah.
he wanted to create his own thing, and like
Yes.
to
And
just
only God can create in
yeah.
Tolkien and in Christianity, that we are just sub-creators, right?
Mhm.
This is what Tolkien always believed in. Only one being in this universe, God, and this is the same for Eru, can create, right? And this is why Melkor couldn't create orcs on his own.
Yeah.
He had to take elves and corrupt elves. He couldn't make living beings. I mean, the story of the dwarves and Aule is another story
Also a
because
great
that
story.
doesn't
Yeah.
that doesn't match the universe. But this is how Tolkien wanted it to be. Like, only God can create, and all of us are just sub-creators. And Melkor was angry. I think there's even a letter of Tolkien speaking about that he says he was angry that he found out, okay, I'm just, a sub-creator. And this is the same like Satan or Lucifer.
Mhm.
This is exactly the same story like in the Bible.
Yeah. And I think like I love the creation story of the dwarves as well, and this idea of the flame imperishable, um and like Melkor, right? So and I had a question about this because
Mhm.
like Alu, I believe that's his name, creates the dwarves, right? But he
Aule. Mhm.
Ale, yeah, he creates the dwarves in the sense that they are not genuine creations. They don't genuinely have their own free will. That creativity thing,
Yeah.
um, until um, uh, Iluvatar essentially says, "Hey, yes, you can do this. We'll
Yeah.
accept them, and they'll be their own
Yeah.
things." But does that ever happen with the orcs? Like, are they ever acknowledged? Do they ever have the flame
No, and
imperishable?
that no, and that's well, they had it because they're created from elves, and elves are Eru's firstborn
Oh,
children. Yeah.
okay. I
That's
see
the
what you
whole thing behind, yeah. But this
Yeah.
is what I always found actually a bit shitty of God, right? Because he said, okay, you're just sub creators, you can't
Mhm.
create yourself. Then there goes Aule and says, okay, but he had different reasons, he didn't want to create evil beings
He was just impatient. Yeah.
he was impatient. He
Yeah.
wanted friends. He wanted children, right? He
Yeah.
didn't want to have followers or minions. He wanted children to teach things.
Yeah.
Still, he brought things into being without God allowing him to do that. And Melkor wanted to do the same, but wasn't allowed. I mean, you could question, was that so cool? Was
Mhm.
dad like in Arrow then treating both children the same? I don't think so, but I mean the
I mean,
intent
that's
is a
that's
different
a
one.
yeah, that's a great thought. Like, I like I don't want to sympathize with Melkor, right? But like,
Same. I like the concept, and
yeah, yeah,
there can't be good without evil.
true, yeah,
There can't be a good story without a baddie. This is the
yeah,
concept of a good story, right?
yeah.
So
But man, again, what a good way to introduce evil into the world, right? Like, just like, yeah, and again, it's kind of an allegory of humanity and maybe even child rearing, right? Like, if you're not
Mhm.
socializing your children, if you're not properly giving them the love that they deserve, then they're going, more times than not, they're
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
super villains. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, and so it's just like, again, I don't want to sympathize with Melkor, but he is a fascinating character, and the whole story, like him adding discord to the harmony, like
Mhm.
it was always bound to happen, I think. And as such,
Mhm.
yes, he had free will, but Iluvatar again knew that would happen, or knew that this was a part of him, and then it could happen in the
It
sense
could
that
happen.
it
He
could
knew,
happen,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
after he's able to go out into the void and just exist by himself, doesn't socialize, comes back and is a terrible singer, and then Iluvatar makes fun of him for being a terrible singer, essentially. TLDR.
This is what I say. He was not the best father,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
the thing is, this is always the what I call the chosen one prophecy, and the chosen one always fails,
yeah,
right? Except Aragon.
yeah.
But that's another story. No, but the thing is, the chosen one, like look at Frodo. Frodo actually
Yeah.
also fails. Frodo didn't destroy the ring. Spoiler.
Spoiler.
So Frodo didn't destroy the ring. Frodo was chosen to destroy the ring. He didn't. And we'll come to God in that story later on, because I don't know if you know, because not everybody knows this story. That did you know that God intervened? That that Tolkien said in a letter that Eru intervened and made Gollum trip.
I did not know that. That
Yeah.
is incredible. Wow.
Yeah. So
Why?
Frodo
Wait,
was
yeah,
just,
why?
yeah. So because you never see in the Lord of the Rings is very, and we're going to talk about that because I find that fascinating, because
Super.
we just talked about religion, right?
Yeah.
Religious concept. God mentioned, God being mentioned, angels being mentioned, heaven, hell, all that is mentioned in the Silmarillion. Sauron literally builds a temple in Numenor. They worship and all that. In the
Yeah.
Lord of the Ring, there is no mentioning of
Nothing
God anywhere.
at all.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but actually, if you take a second and third look into it, the Lord of the Ring is way more religious,
Hmm.
full of religious themes than the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion is not that religious. It's more about houses and battles and
Yeah.
race. This is what it is about. Just the beginning of the Silmarillion is.
Mhm.
Later on, no. But the Lord of the Rings, and this is Tolkien even says in a letter, it's not an allegory, but it's a very religious Catholic works on a second glance. And
Mhm.
it is because all the themes like resurrection, friendship, good versus evil, the chosen one, like Frodo carries the ring to Mount Doom, just like Jesus carried the cross to Golgotha, right? So
Yeah.
all these, this is so symbolic, and it's more Christian than the Silmarillion, which mentions a god,
Yeah.
which is fantastic how he did that. But yeah, back to Gollum. So he says Frodo was just chosen to carry the ring. He was never chosen to destroy the ring. Yeah,
What?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And he made Gollum, God interfered and made Gollum trip, and this is how the ring got destroyed.
Dude,
Mhm.
I am shook.
Did you not know that?
I had no idea. And it
Yeah,
also goes back to the conversation of free will. Like,
it
should he have
does. Yes.
intervened? How many other times has he intervened? Do you know? Like, is
Well, he drowned Numenor. So in
yeah,
the Silmarillion, he did intervene. He drowned Numenor.
yeah.
When else did he intervene? I do not really. I think that maybe one or two more. Gondolin, he didn't. I'm
I
thinking.
mean,
No, I think that's it.
I just don't know why, right? Like he I think like and this is outside of the maybe the conversation of this, but like I feel like if a god existed, free will would be the greatest thing it could ever create, right? Like free
Yeah.
will in a very profound sense is the end all be all. Like if there was a power to be endowed onto to anybody, it would be that, just your agency over yourself.
And
Um
free will makes a good so much more powerful and meaningful. If you
yeah,
don't have free will, what is good, then
you're
everything
just
is boring.
assimilated.
It doesn't make exactly.
Yeah, yeah, you're just a cog in the machine. Like you don't have
Yeah,
agency over yourself, and as such, like it's not a god; it's just a leader of the army. And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
It's
I love that.
mechanical. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and
Mhm.
I also think, man, I just want to sit down and consider why? Like, you know, would the ring not have been destroyed if he didn't do that? And I think that the only reason he would have written that or said that is that, yeah, the ring wouldn't have been destroyed unless
Yeah.
he intervened. And what does that mean? Like, does that mean the end of the world? And
Yeah.
should the
Yeah.
world not end if it genuinely would have ended with, you know, the children of Lúvatar, and all the Valar and their, you know, good and bad, you know, having free will and then coming to this point? Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, but in Christianity, and this is how I think of it, in Christianity, obviously, you know, God, I mean, Lucifer, or later, what's Lucifer's,
Um,
Satan. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Satan, as he's later called.
Mhm.
So it's always a fight, right? But it's not a fair fight because
Yeah.
God is more powerful. Lucifer is a fallen angel, and in the end, God wins, right? But it's still a fight. It's a really good fight, and it makes a good story. And this is how I think of it, because there is always, you know, I think he sees life as a circle, and there is at the end, is a doomsday. There is a doomsday in Tolkien's mythology. It's called Dagor Dagorach, and that is, so you remember Turin, right? Turin
Yeah.
Turamba.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And he will get his revenge because he was actually the one who got tortured the most, or his whole family, by in the children of Hurin story, but also in the Silmarillion partly. His family is literally doomed by
The
Morgoth,
curse. Yeah.
and yeah, cursed. And he gets his revenge actually. So he's the one who kills. It's no one else. It's not God. It's not some angel. It's Turin Turamba, a human, that gets the kill, and he kills Morgoth in the end. So there is a doomsday, and then the world, you know, changes, and then there's a new world. It's like a circle, and I do think Tolkien knew in a way, because, you know, this is now the age of men, and then the age of men, you know, after the fourth age or the fifth or whatever, you know, falls again, and then there's the doomsday, and then a new world starts, because Tolkien saw this whole thing as a pre-existing world to our world. This is the mythology of England, right? And then thousands of years later, our world came into being. This is how he
Whoa.
saw it.
Wait, really? That you're blowing my mind right now. That's
Yeah,
amazing. So,
yeah.
like, I just read about the second song, right, or the second
Mhm.
great music, right?
Mhm.
That's
Second
something
music
that
of the Ainur. Yeah.
hasn't happened yet. Like, that was the point that we're building toward. Like, the children of Lúvatar would also sing
Yes.
with the Valar.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And then they maybe created our world, or there was maybe a world. He never specified this,
like in
right?
between, or yeah,
Maybe then he created another world, and then came our world. But this is a pre-existing world and continent to our world.
yeah,
It's like a fairy story, like a story of old, which he wanted to be true, because he said
yeah,
fairy stories could be true, right?
true.
So he wanted to create a kind of real mythology, and this is why I think he intervened, because he knew, no, now it's time for men. You know, he always wanted the story to play out, and I think there were people and beings with free will, that, you know, played their part. But I think he framed with the music, he gave everything a frame, and I do think he saw, okay, this is now time for the age of men, and then for doomsday, and then, you know, the world to change again. I think this is why he interfered. But
Yeah,
everybody can, you know, it's not like Tolkien said it is like that.
yes,
This is
it's like that, yeah,
my thinking.
yeah.
Somebody out there can have a complete different opinion
I
about
love
that.
that. Yeah, I love that, and I also think, like, you know, what if we're wrong about free will? Like, it's described as creativity, and what if, like, you know, after that second song and the creation of a new world, and you know, the history and blood, sweat, and tears of everything that, you know, happened, then we can understand free will, right? Like, now it's creativity, and it's like kind of agency over yourself to make decisions. Um, but yeah, through the struggle of all of that, then we can achieve free will in a new world, in mankind.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that. Yeah,
maybe this is the Matrix, you know,
maybe. Yeah,
Matrix.
yeah. Is this Middle Earth? Like, is Texas Middle Earth? I don't know, dude.
Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
you've been binging everything. You tell
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
You're fully into it.
I love
No,
it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but I do think this this free will topic, and this is why I always come back to Turin, because this is the best story to portray free will in humans. Because this is how I see it. I mean, there are two ways to see it. I see he had free will, because this is why Tolkien always tells us he could have done this, but he did this. And then the further he went, he literally doomed himself, right? There was always Morgoth's curse, but I do think what Tolkien wants us to know is, even if a Dark Lord tells you, or like tells you, oh, you're doomed, your whole family is doomed. No, fight it, fight
Fight it,
against it, do good things.
always
But
have
he
a
never
choice.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a choice. And I do think this is what Tolkien wanted to tell us, but there are other people who say, no, Morgoth cursed him and doomed his family, and everything just played out. He didn't have a choice. I do think the way Tolkien describes everything, he had a choice.
Yeah, I think I share that consensus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, and I think honestly, like with this whole discussion and the the grand story as a whole, I think that also fits in perfectly. I think that he had a choice, and sadly, with what he knew and understood, that he just succumbed to the curse anyway.
And I don't think, if Tolkien saw this whole thing as a pre-existing world to our world, I don't think Tolkien saw himself as somebody not having a free will. So
Yeah.
all these beings, he wanted them to be true. He wanted them to be a tale, a fairy tale, but
Yeah.
could be true, right? What you tell your children later one day. These were our ancestors, blah, 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 or could have been our ancestors. And
Such a cool idea.
do you want them to not have free will? Because that would mean you don't have free will. And so I don't think that.
True. Yeah. But at the same time, like in the story, in storytelling, like I think there's a lot of liberties there in the sense like there's also not curses, right? Like, in or magic or stuff like that. Like, so are we reading too much into it, or is it simply that I forget where I was going with this point?
Don't you can go anywhere.
Yeah, like in the sense that like I don't know. Like a curse doesn't exist, so free will does exist, but do we read into the fact that like maybe curses existed where free will didn't?
Curses exist here
Yeah,
because you make them real. We create, this is
probably, yeah,
why are we our worst enemy? Because we create all the bullshit here.
yeah,
Obviously, COVID is real, and everybody
yeah,
who says
yeah,
it's not, I mean, go F yourself. But the thing is, a lot of problems we create here, and this is we kind of curse ourselves. And I do, like witches, or why do people go to all these not witches, what are they called in, I just know the gem, to these fortune tellers, yeah,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Why do people go to fortune tellers? Because it's not like they know like
yeah.
everybody kind of knows that, but they want
You
them
must
either
believe
to
it. Yeah,
confirm, they want to confirm a theory you have, or to guide you or whatever. But you create it here, right? So this is the truth you create. So this is how I see it.
yeah. No, I think I agree. And it's so funny. Like I was talking to a buddy of mine about hypnosis, right? And
Yeah.
he was
Oh,
studying hypnosis, and I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? You're in IT. Like, what are you doing? But you were talking, and he was like, yeah, you have to believe that you can be, hypnotized to be hypnotized. I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but like, at that point, like, is it real? And or is it just that, like, astrology works, and reading charts, works because like people want it to work.
yes.
Like,
And you pick
yeah,
the stuff you hear, the stuff you want to hear, right?
yeah, yeah. It's like I'm gonna, mine could have said I wake up and have a good day, and you know, uh, talk about awesome stories all day long, and yeah, and so yeah, that happened, but it's never that exact, and it's never that, but it applies across the board. And I want it to happen. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But this is, I do think in a way, like Tolkien scored was a really good storyteller as well, because he dropped things, and he dropped this and this a little bit there, and he sprinkled some fairy dust there, and then he wanted things to, because I think that is a good god who just doesn't plan everything and says this needs to be blue, this needs to be this is why else would he have the Ainur help him create, right? So I really do think he was in a way a storyteller, and he wanted the story to unfold, and I think he enjoyed watching it, actually.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
why he didn't interfere that often. He interfered when, like with Frodo or with Numenor, when people went too far, when the evil went, Sauron went too far. He didn't want Sauron to win in the end, and show him, okay, till here and no further.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he enjoyed everything else that happened. This is why he didn't interfere. This is why he didn't send the eagles everywhere and that stuff. Because a good storyteller doesn't want things, like I said, to be boring.
True. And I also think like there's a cool opportunity here for like what happened if he didn't what would happen if the ring wasn't destroyed, And like
Yeah.
I think ultimately, because we know that God had to intervene here, that it would mean certain doom. Like it would be the end of the story at some point, and just utter chaos and destruction for all that they've created. And I think I think there's some opportunity for storytelling in a TV show or movie or something, what would happen if they didn't destroy the ring?
Oh my God, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. But this is why he had all the good characters, like they didn't, like Galadriel, she put herself to test with the ring, and she said, "Oh no, okay, I won't take it."
Yeah.
Gandalf didn't want to take it, so he
Yeah.
had protagonists who actually said, "Oh no, I'm very tempted, and I knew I would be doing good, but this is what I always say: magic always comes with a price, right?" And they knew that, and Sauron just didn't care. He knew
Yeah.
it, but he didn't care. But Gandalf knew. Well, if, like I always say, I mean, I don't like these videos, what if, but I recently made a Galadriel video, and I thought, what if she had the ring, right? She would have trees everywhere. Trees need
Sure.
water, so maybe she would have dried out Middle Earth or some regions where people live who need water, or like weird, like weird
Yeah.
stuff like that. But that would have happened. That would
Yeah.
be real, and yeah, so he had people who said no, but then, I mean, there's even a passage of Frodo, when he puts on the ring, I think for the first or second time, he's very tempted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and it's so funny, like, in the sense of like him interfering, like in the Amaya, and I hope I say this right, the Astari, what Gandalf is, the
Study? Mhm.
yeah, so like, there's a lot of times where Gandalf just like wants the characters that he's interacting with, or the people that he's interacting with, to make the right decisions,
Yes.
right? And and it's like I think that's inspired
Doesn't
from
say do this and this and this. He
yeah,
guides them.
yeah, he's a guide, right? And it's like he wants the children of Luvatar to be their own people, to make their own progress and stuff like that. And I think that's amazing. And reading the Silmarillion and putting all this together just like brings so much more meaning to like what Gandalf was doing, right?
Mhm.
Like he wanted to honor Luvatar and the Valar that he mentored under. I forget her name, but ultimately that taught him that compassion, and taught why he should be this way, and why that's ultimately good. And yeah, so I love the story of everything that Gandalf did, just so much more, because he wants the children of Luvatar to have their own agency and everything.
Oh, this is another example where Eru intervened, bringing
Mm.
back Gandalf. The resurrection, just like Jesus.
Oh,
Again, another topic of Christianity
huh.
in the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so I'm writing a video about the ring, and
Yeah.
what I discovered, and that's so weird, and I don't know if it's intentional. I've never read about it. So if you think about when was the ring destroyed, the ring was destroyed on the 25th of March. And when you and when you count back
Uh-huh.
9 months, right?
Uh-huh.
No, wait. So Jesus was born on 24th, 25th of December, right? And
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, if you count back 9 months, you're on the 25th of March. So the day the ring was destroyed, Jesus was conceived by
Interesting.
Mary. Yeah.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
And people say also on the 25th of March, I think historians say that because we celebrate Easter. I mean, I'm Jewish, I don't celebrate it really, but Easter is celebrated on, on various dates, but they say the day Jesus was killed was the 25th of March as well.
Yeah.
So the ring was destroyed on the day Jesus was conceived and Jesus was killed.
Mm.
So, and it's for me, the ring always stood for something like, or for Christians, for something like original sin, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty deep.
And Jesus
Yeah.
died for us, basically, right?
Yeah.
So
And
did Gollum die for us as well? Or
yeah.
I just like
Gollum was the true hero of the story. Let's just yeah.
there are a lot of little
Yeah.
heroes, like shout out to my favorite hero, Farmer Maggot, um,
Yeah.
and Sam's dad, like all these little deeds
Yeah.
that in the end led to the destruction of the ring.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say I think like historical records show that like Jesus was actually born during the summer, right? Like
okay.
because that was like or I think it relates to like taxes. Like
Oh,
we
okay.
we know that like they were on a voyage in the middle of the summer because of taxes and the town was overwhelmed with people. That's why they were staying in the stable. Um but yeah, I mean like I think most people consider December 25th
Yeah.
Jesus' birthday, right? So I think the fact that all of that aligns does not, that's way too much to be,
I think so.
coincidental.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah,
So, but I never thought about it, and then
yeah.
I did some math, and then I was like, oh, that's weird.
So weird.
Um, yeah. So, because a lot of, like people say, oh, but there is no religion. There are no churches in Middle Earth. Nobody is praying. Everybody's just
Mm,
singing songs. But what do you do in the church? You sing a song, right?
and songs, yeah.
And this is how they told history, because they couldn't read. It's not like they could
Yeah,
read in the Dark Ages. Nobody could read a book and tell their children the story of whoever. This is
yeah.
why they had songs. This is how you learn. This is why they had. My mother is a professor for ancient for medieval art in churches,
Amazing.
and and so she wrote one book about this is how people learned and taught their children with the paintings in the churches.
So
Yeah,
cool.
because they
So
didn't
cool.
have it.
Yeah,
Somebody had a library at home, like some farmer. So and this is what Tolkien, in a way, does as well.
yeah. That is dude, that is so cool. Like, the idea of like, passing history through song, right? I think that is just brilliant. And I think that yeah, that definitely happened in our history in that. And I think also, song is a form of worship, right? Like, you're idolizing these stories, you're making conscious effort to remember them and pass them on as, revered, renowned things. And but then like the paintings, right? Man, that is such a cool idea. Immediately I think of like stained glass mosaics of just the birth of Christ or stuff like that to keep those stories. But I also have the death of Socrates hanging on my wall,
Mhm.
and I'm sorry, and I like
Same
uh
here.
yeah I love it, and I asked my wife to buy me this painting because it's just like it's such a profound thing to me, and in the sense that like there was a point where the history and the tale of that story only exist in that painting, and people observing that painting is beautiful. Like Yeah.
Yeah, no, and they had no other form or way of learning. And the thing is, a lot of artists, this is really interesting, and I kind of knew, but I learned from my mom a lot that some artists had hidden messages in their
Mm,
sculptures, in their paintings.
yeah.
The church sometimes didn't know and wouldn't agree on. So they,
Amazing.
the artists sometimes, effed with the church by had hidden things in
Yeah.
the paintings and all
Dude.
that.
Art is amazing, man. It doesn't get
Yeah,
enough credit.
yeah,
It's so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is, Tolkien kind of knew that this is not,
Yeah.
he did it because song is a form of art, right?
Yeah.
And why did he have all these, maps and paintings? He painted a lot, right? As well. He did not just describe his world. He had he
Yeah.
painted Middle Earth as well, and it's beautiful. He did it that way, and it just said it's this way and this way, and God didn't just say it.
Yeah.
He created everything by a form of art.
Yeah.
And people even fought with that form, right? Like you had the Sauron and Fingolfin. They did sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I think that yeah, it's definitely, and religion may not be explicitly stated, right? But I do think there's worship. It's like the powers of these people that created, are known. Like they knew of the Valar, right? Like they knew these tales. Yeah, yeah. So like,
yeah.
whereas this,
Well, the thing yeah, so the people of Numenor definitely knew, and
yeah,
then it got more and more forgotten because this is how I see it. They came from a very high level civilization in Numenor, literally back to the Dark Ages, and people in the Dark Ages,
mm,
so Middle Earth, they literally just fought. Look at the people; they fought for their lives. They wanted to eat and feed their children, raise their children, and live an okay life and not be, like be overrun by Sauron's enemy armies or something like that. So when do you really have the time for that, right?
true. Yeah,
Mm, so you don't really have. This is how I saw it to think about the gods or something like that. But in Numenor, they definitely knew of the Valar. They knew this is forbidden to go there. They knew the elves
yeah.
were very close to the Valar. Later on, it it's more a myth. The
Mm,
God and the angels became more and more of a myth. They kind
interesting.
of knew, but they didn't knew them by name, or they didn't, like they didn't really. I think the belief in them,
Yeah,
like it wasn't really there.
yeah. It was just
Hmm?
it went from fact
The
to
bad age. Yeah,
myth, and through them not having anything and needing to fight for their life, it just wasn't a concern.
yeah.
Plus,
So
if
from
they're
third, second age,
yeah,
that literally dropped. I
plus
think.
if you're fighting against evil and to keep your family alive and your town and friends, and you're praying to God, at some point, like you just stop praying to God, like and I think that yeah, them hoping that Tolkas, it makes them stronger or something like that. Just they would eventually stop. Yeah,
And I think always men were not. I mean, this is shown by the elves are immortal, right?
yeah,
So the elves and Valar wanted the elves. I just dropped a video about the sundering of the elves and the awakening of the elves. So the Valar, they really loved the elves because they understood them. They were in a way similar. They were under, immortal.
mm,
So the elves could go to Valinor, and the Valar wanted them to be with them. Why did they not want the men there? It was not because Eru said, "Oh, men can't
yeah,
come here." They didn't understand men. They didn't understand the concept. Men were so different, and I do think, especially in the Third Age, men were way more free-willed and wild and
yeah,
corruptible and all that. They were very you couldn't control them. And I do think that was very hard for the Valar because the elves, why did they like the Vanya the most? Because they were literally the most boring elves ever, and they just worshipped
yeah,
God and the Valar. boring. So this is why they liked them most. But men, they never understood them. They were literally wild animals and creatures. They never understood them.
I mean, I think like rightfully so, right? Like, because there's a few stories where like, it talks about I forget what it's called. It's called like the gift of man, right? And it's essentially death. Yeah. And it's like, if you're comparing yourself to the elf that has been alive for 1,000 years, and you're just like, you get like a tenth of that. I imagine you're going to take more liberties. Like, I think right now, if like we had people that live forever, that contrast would stand out to us so much more, and we would become way more adventurous and want to do more, and probably want to kill the people that live forever because mankind. But yeah.
I think this is exactly what Tolkien also says. I think, and this is what I totally get. It's like you're a very bright flame and you shine for a very short time, but you shine very bright, right? And like the other one, the long candles, literally never burn out. I mean, they're not that bright. And I think this is how he saw it. But yeah, I really do think temptation is a big thing because of the mortal and immortality topic, which is I think it's actually mean to do that. I think God is really a meanie to then even give them the blessed realm of Numenor, literally setting them up to see the undying lands, because before in Middle Earth, they didn't really care that much for the Valar. They didn't really care that much for the elves. They had their own thing going on. It was just men, again, fighting for survival, having their own lands and whatever, and they were content and happy. And then you meet somebody who is immortal. Then God sends you to an island where you can even see all the riches that are there, immortal beings. Like, I mean, that was set up for failure. Hello?
100%. But here's the other part. I wonder if what Melkor sung was temptation, right? And ultimately why he was created was temptation, and how that could be so bad, right? Because he was
sin.
Yeah, and he was tempted to, to create his own children, to compare himself to his creator, and like we would compare ourselves to the elves in the same way that he would compare himself to his creator, and see, hey, I'm not able to live forever. Hey, I'm not able to create my own thing. He feels, tempted to do that, and I think that, maybe that was it. Like maybe mankind, maybe mankind has that temptation because of Melkor, and maybe they were supposed to, right? Like maybe they would have only burned that bright if they were tempted to want to live forever, or
what you said. Otherwise they wouldn't dare. They wouldn't, they would just be scared in their houses and awaiting their death. But no, they didn't. And men are literally, especially in the second age, that like men like or fast, like Turin and all these people, or Hurin, his father, he withstood Melkor. He literally stood in front of Melkor and said, "Yeah, I don't care. I'm not going to tell you. You can do whatever you want to me. You can torture me all day long. I'm not going to tell you." The elves didn't do, men were so courageous.
Yeah. He's like, dude, we can take it outside. Like, I'm not telling you shit, man. We can do this for eternity, which for me is like, not as long as for you. Like, this will always haunt you. I'll be dead in like a little bit. Like, don't even stress it, man.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. I never thought about the discord being something like temptation.
Temptation, yeah.
I don't know. Interesting.
It's a profound thought. Like I feel like
Adam snake, it literally started there, right? And
100%. Yeah, that's great. Oh my god. Yeah. If it's like, if he was to create anybody, like, and we're taking into consideration that Iluvatar wouldn't explicitly create an evil being, then yeah, I think temptation is ultimately what he was going for, or maybe a mix of that.
Maybe just temptation, and then he saw it play out, because I do not think he had in mind, okay, I'm going to create an evil being that will do this and this. And I don't think that, because again, it is said that the Ainur are exactly, it's an offspring of his thoughts.
Yeah.
So that would mean he had evil thoughts, and I don't think that.
Yeah.
I think he had free thoughts. I think he had.
Yeah. But I guess what would tempt him? What would, if this was to exist, that would mean that temptation was one of his thoughts. And what would tempt a god? I don't know. Maybe other gods? Maybe there's a multiverse or something. I don't know.
Multiverse of madness. Okay, my channel. That is I don't know, because nobody ever explains as God, right? Nobody ever says he eats, I don't know, salmon for breakfast and he has oatmeal for nobody ever said, like, we don't know. We make up, like, he just is, right?
Yeah.
What is define is.
Yeah, he's just like chicken diet or Presbyterian, doesn't really care. But yeah.
Yeah, but interesting, and I really like that Tolkien has literally two worlds. He has a Silmarillion where he talks about religion, where there is a god, where there are gods, like you say, demigods, angels, whatever you want to say. There are temples. There, all this is mentioned. There are people who are doomed, there are curses, all that, curses of the Noldor, the curse of Húrin, like that. So much rich Christian history mentioned, like in your face mentioned. And in the Lord of the Rings, it's not, but it's more Christian. It's really more Christian than the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating, and it just makes him such a good author, because he's not in your face. And this is what I always say, him and Lewis were really good friends, and I like the Chronicles of Narnia. I mean, I read them as a child. They're good books, but Aslan is Jesus, and you know that literally from paragraph 3 you read about him, right?
Yeah.
Who's Jesus in the Lord of the Rings? Many of them have Jesus' role. Many of them have the role of, it's not clear. There's not one hero. There is not. I mean, there's one king. Blah blah blah. But there's not one hero. It takes all of them, the Fellowship, to make this story and to destroy evil. And that is what I prefer and like, and what makes a way better story than the Chronicles of Narnia.
Totally, yeah. And I Chronicles of Narnia, love it, great story. But growing up in a Christian household, I wasn't allowed to read it. Like, I literally remember being in church and the pastor saying, like, "Hey, don't read this book." Like, it was like trending for some reason, and the whole sermon was just about like it being a blasphemous thing, right? And 100%.
Just became a very devoted Christian.
Yeah, but it was just like I think it related to the images of Jesus, or him as a writer, like trying to better interpret the word of God or something like that. But yeah, it was just a little fun fact.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's why, like, I think there's a lot of issues with modern Christianity, but maybe that's one of them.
No, but the thing is, like, what I like about everything Tolkien did, especially with the Lord of the Rings, but also with the Silmarillion, like, there's always this Tolkien didn't like allegory, blah blah blah. And allegory is in your face, right? It tells you this is this, and this is true, false, whatever. But his religion is way deeper, and it makes you think about stuff, then come to your own conclusions, then compare it maybe to your own life, think about who is the actual hero. For some people it's Sam, for some people it is Frodo, for some people it's Aragorn, for some people it's Círdan, it's that is so cool, and that makes it so much deeper. But in the end, you all agree who's good, who's evil. You all agree friendship is important. You all agree, like you
Yeah.
all agree on this, on the main Christian themes.
Yeah.
But you all come, that in German there's a saying, there are like many ways, but in the end they all lead to Rome.
Nice.
I can't translate it, but this is what we say. So we're very weird people. I don't know why we talk about Rome. Why is it not Berlin or something? Very old, probably from some ancient pope or emperor. Had to go to Rome and like barefoot over the mountains to make the Pope like him again, and whatever. So this is what I think of Tolkien's works, and that is so cool. But it's still all the topics you come up with when you ask people, what is this about? It's about friendship, and all of that is Christian.
Yeah, and I think that, and it may not even be inherently Christian, right? Like I think we can infer that for a lot of reasons, but I think that like allegory helps deconstruct these complex ideas of morality, right? Where like it's hard to explain why you should be a moral person, but it's so easy to describe why you should be good to people because you want them to be good to you, right? Like and I think that stuff like this and stories like this have these profound allegory. Because it does deconstruct those issues, and power of friendship all day long.
No, it's true, and the thing is, you compare it to, you think about real life. You compare a lot of these things. It's what we actually just did today, and you discover all these things in yourself, or rediscover, and you're like, oh right, it was actually so nice, when I was 10 and did that thing with the bunch of my friends, and we kind of destroyed a ring as well, whatever you did. It's nice to think about the stuff you did and rediscover. This is what, whenever I read these books, I rediscover topics, like beautiful topics, and that is what makes these books and this world he created so amazing.
Yeah. Honestly, it is, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's so good. It's beautiful for a lot of reasons, but that self-discovery and who you want to be and how this can inspire your world is just magic.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So do you want to talk a little bit? Do you have a few more minutes, and then we can wrap it up? Or do you have
good.
a burning question about this? You always had. Not that I'm saying I can answer it, because I probably can't, because you think three steps ahead of me. But
I two questions. Firstly, who is your favorite Valar?
Oh God.
If you had to pick anyone. Melkor? Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't expect that. Just
100%.
True evil. Okay, yeah. Mine would be Tolkien, because I love the story of him and Nessa, and just like him as like just this big, burly bear guy, and
And Michael was afraid of him, like really, really afraid.
Very afraid. Like, and his laughter was like literally like haunted Melkor. Like,
they were like, someone said they're like the cheerleader and the football guy of the, because they're the ones who got married, right? As well. I think that's the wedding. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great feast. They got married. And then he had a big slumber, and
I mean,
happened. Yeah.
Yay, good for him.
Yeah.
No, he's fun. He's fun. Cool. Yeah.
And I love the idea of like, her, like she was like considered, Nessa was just considered like the least powerful of the Valar, right? And for like this just like giant monster of a guy to like fall in love with this little, petite, but just as fast as him. They could like run through the woods and dance together. I love it, dude. It's so wholesome. I don't know.
No, it's really, I love how he, again, this is very Roman. This is why I think you're correct when you say gods in a way, or demigods, because it's very Greek or Roman gods like. I mean, you can literally find all of them in one of these mythologies.
It feels like he's Ares, right? Or Ares, the god of war, right? Like, and then my second question was about.
You like the least of them? I think that question is.
Oh yeah, which is the least? I want to know that too.
Well, mine is sorry, I'm really bad with the name. What's her name? The mother of nature, Yavanna.
Oh, really? Why? Why in particular?
I told you about the trees.
Oh yeah.
No, I think she's so self-righteous, and with like always fighting with Owlet, and then kind of dooming the dwarves, and the ends from the beginning, like saying, "Oh, you and my children will never get along," blah blah blah. I don't like her. I'm like, nah. I'm not a nature person. Also,
Yeah, destroy nature. Who needs it?
yeah. Hey, Malcolm.
Consume. Yeah.
Everything makes sense now.
Now it all makes sense. Yep. Yep. Helen has been a villain this entire time. We just, didn't know it.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is not like, no. This is how I disguise myself.
Yeah. It's a good form.
I'm Avatar, basically. I'm female Sauron disguising.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know if I have a least favorite. The one that deals with like prison. It's like he's the prisoner.
Mandos.
Yeah. I feel like I need to know more about him.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's like it seems like he was like supposed to be the bad guy, but then like more of justice.
You would think so, because there's like the Greek world of the the underworld, right?
Yeah.
He is kind of that, but he's not bad.
Yeah. I think probably him. It seems like he was supposed to be like the Lucifer, Satan, and then kind of like just became, and which I think is a cool twist, in the sense that he's not explicitly evil, but it's just like he does his job and doesn't like. I feel like in my research now, he doesn't have like a bigger goal that he wants to do. Just to obey.
Yeah, he just feel. Yeah, you're right.
Cool. I'll just
a lot of will, but well, in a way, do you remember that Lúthien gets oh my god, it's really late, and Lúthien gets re-embodied and brought back to life because she sings the halls of Mandos. She goes there and sings her super sad song, and it's like,
that's right. Yeah.
My man died. Can I mean, there's no way of me. I don't want to live anymore. I'm immortal, but can I please die? So she's brought back and given the chance to have one mortal life. And this is Mandos who she sings in front of him, and he brings her back. And I'm not sure if it said that he brings back Glorfindel, but should be, because they're all in the halls of Mandos when they died. Their spirits are, and then he gets re-embodied. So he has something to do, but yeah, he's boring. And I think his wife is just weaving tapestry. Like what? F, like,
what are you doing, dude? Yeah. You have eternity. Like, find another hobby. Yeah, I think and the other last thing I wanted to say is that the story of Beren and Lúthien. Yeah.
Lúthien.
Yeah, Lúthien. My heart, man. Oh my gosh, dude. Like, that was like reading it, that was the thing that stood out most. Their love story was just like so wholesome. And the fact that like she ultimately makes the biggest sacrifice to be with him, and feels good.
And it mirrors what Aragorn and Arwen then later were actually related to them. They're their forefathers. They're not that close related, thank God. But it mirrors it, and it is a beautiful story. And do you know? I don't know if you've read, but it is actually on Tolkien's grave. There's that on his wife's Edith, Beren and Lúthien, and he called her Lúthien. And there are similarities between, obviously not really, but there are some similarities. And he wrote that in a way with his wife in mind.
Dude, wholesome, man. Just so good.
Yeah, because
Very
they were from different worlds. He was a Catholic, a Roman Catholic, and
Mm,
she was Protestant. And at that time in England, that was a really, really big problem. They were basically came from, different backgrounds and different worlds. This is what Beren and Lúthien were. And yeah,
that is incredible. I'm so glad that I
this is
know that
why I
now.
put so much love into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
man, feels good.
So Hax is going back, rereading
Oh yeah.
the Silmarillion, and I just told Hax and blew his mind that there are 12 books of the history of Middle Earth, then unfinished tales, and so many. And the three, I think, what I would recommend now is to read the three great tales.
Mm,
Children of Hurin, Beren and Lúthien, Fall of Gondolin, and then you have more insight into the first age, and it's
yeah.
really good stuff.
What do you recommend about the second age? Like, because the Amazon show I think is going to deal with that, right? Um,
Correct.
and there's a few things that I've been considering, like what I think, like, because there has to be like such a profound story and like an over like a giant arc that they can go on if they're investing so much into the show.
Age
Um,
is long. Second age was
yeah.
3,340 or 3,431, whatever, over
Mm,
3,000 years long. It's the longest time-wise, the longest of the first, second, and third age.
yeah.
And so a lot happened in the second age, but the main thing is at the beginning, Numenor rose, at the
Mm,
end, Numenor fall and drowned. So I do think a lot will play in Numenor, but they
yeah.
can't cover in. Apparently, it will be 5 seasons. You can't cover 3,000 years.
3,000 years. Yeah.
They're not all elves, so everybody will be dead. I mean, the Numenorians had a long life; they could go to 400 years, but still, you would have to cover so many generations. So, what I think is
Mm,
maybe they will have some, like looking back at the beginning of Numenor, whatever, and the founding of Numenor, and then I think everything will be around the forging of the rings. That was just a
yeah.
short time, and then Sauron giving all those rings to the dwarves, to the nine king of men, and then corrupting them and then becoming the Nazgul. I do think that is a time frame you can cover.
I think, yeah. I think
And
that I think if like to reach the biggest audience humanly possible, like people that don't know what Numenor is, like I think that if season one ends with like the creation of the first ring or something like that, or just like something big and profound, like because everyone can relate to the rings, right? Everyone knows that.
you need something. You need you
Yeah,
need something relatable. You can't just
yeah,
start with you couldn't start with the Silmarillion. People would be like, "What is this?"
yeah.
Like, I'm
What is
not.
a Silmaril? Yeah,
Yeah, what is a Silmarillion
yeah.
exactly? So you need, and not many people were already there. And it's literally Galadriel, Elrond,
Mhm.
even Gandalf wasn't there in the second age. He came later. So you have that one. Obviously Sauron. He is
Yeah,
the main heir who was alive. Yeah. So you don't have that many people, and you can't again in 5 seasons. If everybody dies, and in the next season you have the next generation, you're not like it's not a coherent story. Like what? It's not a
well,
story people that
yeah.
catches people.
I will say there is one other, like in terms of like thousands of years of storytelling, there is one story that I know that does pull it off, and that's the Foundation series. I forget the author's name. It's a sci-fi story, but it's what inspired Star Wars, right? And it is like it is a very hard book to read, but it takes place over centuries, and it is like you'll be introduced to a character in chapter one, and then you'll hear about that character by like the great 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 grandchildren of like, wow, I'm so glad that my father's
Mm,
father's father did this, and because now we have peace. And it's cool in the sense that like you have the entire story of what's happening, but
yeah.
it is hard to follow.
Especially visually, because
Yes.
people also like to see actors again, right?
Yeah.
And not
Yes.
reintroduce themselves to another cast in another. Yeah, I don't think that really
Yeah,
works. And so I do think it will be around the time of the forging of the rings. That would
I
make
think you're
sense.
right.
such a cool time. Just imagine. I mean, the prologue, Galadriel tells us in the beginning of the movies is literally one of the best things ever when she talks about the forging of the rings. It is so cool, and the battle of the last alliance and all that. And I do think the show could
good.
the battle of the last alliance, and then the next step is basically the 3 Lord of the Ring movies, a third age. So that would be so cool. But what you can read is to prepare for that is Unfinished Tales, because in Unfinished Tales you have really, and that's one of my most precious stories. It's a story of Aldarion and Earendis, and this is so cool. It's the Mariner's Wife. It's called the Mariner's Wife, and he was one of the kings of Numenor. He was 5th or 6th king, and so the story is the line of succession wasn't written that the eldest child becomes king or queen. It was always, they were always lucky, and the eldest child was always a boy. So till Silmarillion was born. Silmarillion was the daughter of the king and the firstborn child. But then they not changed, but they said, okay, well, I also have a son. I'll let my son be king. And so she was kind of cheated out of, and now it gets interesting. Silmarillion is the ancestor of Aragorn. So in the end, her line, the line was effed over. Her ancestor, actually, her line goes back to, gets the throne back, and they were called the Faithful, the line of the Faithful. They were against Sauron, and those were the ones who survived the downfall of Numenor and then went to Middle-earth, and those were the ancestors of Aragorn. The line of the king of her brother died out. Those were the ones that effed up. One of them became the Witch King. It's my theory, and it's correct. And and so you see, just by cheating her out of the throne, the actual rightful queen, things got worse. And the story of Aldarion and Earendis shows you everything was blissful in Numenor, everything was perfect, everybody was happy. And then with the passing of the throne, that part of the family, he fights with his wife. They have a daughter as well, an only child, because they so much and they are estranged, and so they don't have more children. And this is the first time you learn of Numenorians fighting and doing evil deeds and all that stuff. So it's a story of Aldarion and Earendis, and I do think thing is that was not around the forging of the rings. The forging of the rings was thousand years later. But he, sorry, cat. But he first went to Middle Earth, so they were all in Numenor. Teddy wants to say hello.
Hi, I love you. You're amazing. You're a good cat.
Hi, Teddy. And he was the one who founded all the settlements we know of later in Numenor. He was the first one who left in Middle-earth. He left Middle-earth, and it's really cool, and it's Unfinished Tales. And that story is so cool because it tells you about the shadow befalling Numenor, and who is referred to as the shadow. It's Sauron. It's really cool. Read that. It's in Unfinished Tales.
I think
series.
Yeah, I knew about the shadow. I didn't know about that story. How do you spell their name?
Aldarion and Earendis, Mariner's Wife. Just Google Tolkien Mariner's Wife. It's like 80 pages or something like that. It's not really long. It's in Unfinished Tales, and it's so good. It's about how he founded the guild of the the shipping guild, and how they created colonies in Middle-earth. It's really cool.
I think that is in terms of what Amazon's going to do, I think that seems amazing. I don't know if it relates to the Forging the Rings, right? Because it's 1,000.
They can reference to, they can go back in time and say this is the first time, because I do think Sauron interfered there, because literally Tolkien was a linguist. He could have said many things about times getting bad. He said this was the time the shadow came on Numenor.
Mm,
And he always calls Sauron the shadow.
yeah,
He was a linguist. He could have said anything. He said shadow. So
yeah,
Sauron came. I do think he was a shapeshifter. I do think I have a video on that actually.
yeah.
He came to Numenor before he actually came thousands of years later and corrupted the last king. He came to Numenor before and effed up the line of the kings and
Yeah.
influenced the kings. And I think he was there before.
Because I think I think that's great. I think 100%. And with the rings, like they were only able to create them with the help of Sauron, right? Like he influenced
Taught
or
them.
taught them, yeah. And I think like us learning that and then seeing how like he manipulates the people with the rings, I think that is great storytelling. And I think there's so much more to expand there. Um, so yeah, I mean, I see that.
Him turning the kings, right? I
Yeah,
mean, said they were mighty warriors, mighty kings, and even him going to the east and the second in command, Kamul,
yeah,
like turning him into a Nazgul, and because it's not like the who I think the Witch King is, he he wasn't evil in the beginning.
mm,
He was corrupted, and I love to see that because
yeah,
Sauron. We don't know that much about him in the Third Age. He was just an evil guy, but
yeah,
he definitely had a backstory, right? And I want to see that. I want to see him as that beautiful version of Sauron corrupting elves, because he actually also
yeah,
corrupted the elves. Galadriel was the one who didn't trust him. He corrupted Celebrimbor, the
yep,
the forger of the rings,
yep,
and there's it's called Gwaith Almyrdain. I don't know if I
mm.
pronounce it correct. It was the smithing guild,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it was a whole guild, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the corruption of the men and elves and dwarves, I think is something to explore as well. Because like, you know, there's a quite interesting concept of like the dwarves never being corrupted, right? You know, it's described as like
Mhm.
like their lust for gold is the
That
only
was
thing that,
mhm.
yeah, and it's like,
Why? Pauli made them.
yeah, and like I think that it's interesting. Like, yes, men and elves were affected much differently, but I mean, it's still, your obsession with monetary gain, right? Like even now, like that is a bad thing, right? You can be a dragon existing on billions of dollars, and then you still die at the end, right? Your life isn't different. You're not helping other people. The corruption is that you just genuinely care for yourself instead of other people, which I think is cool to explore as well.
Yeah, no. But I do think the dwarfs were not corrupted because they were
Yeah,
not made by God. They were not made
yeah,
in the image of men or
yeah,
anything. Aule made them in his image. Aule was never corrupted by evil.
yeah.
He was a Valar. So I do
So
think
cool.
that's the idea behind it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is the truth. This is just my canon.
Yeah, and I think they were created from mud or stone or something like clay. Yeah, and so like they're just like sturdier. I don't know. Yeah,
Uh, cool.
yeah.
Yay. So do you have one? Do you have more questions?
No,
I will go. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. I love this. I feel so fortunate to talk to you about it. Like your intelligence about this world is just, all striking to me. And I feel fortunate to talk to you and that you've exposed me to this world. Like, I'm ready to dive head in and learn more.
That is what I really, whenever somebody like come and said, oh my god, it's so cool, I will read the book again,
Yeah.
or like I'm more interested in this, or I will buy this book. Now this is literally why I'm doing this,
Yeah.
um, because I want people to know, and this is why I do Silmarillion content, because I want people to know there is more than just a lot of, yes, those books are epic and
Yeah.
awesome, but I want them to know and take their fear away, because yes, this book is like you experience, this book is really hard to read, but I
Yeah.
want to take their fear away of it's not readable because it's not true. And if you
Yeah.
need help, come to channels like mine, and we try to explain stuff. in a non-judgy way, and we all of us say, this is just us guessing partly, but that's a cool thing, because it sparks the imagination of others, and then you have your and this is how I think Tolkien wanted it, right? He wanted people to
100%.
write his works. And I always want to say, I don't know, this is why my name is my name. I'm the clueless fangirl. I'm not saying the rightful fangirl, the correct fangirl. So, yeah, I love that. And this is why I choose to do Silmarillion content, because everybody, there are so many channels out there who do the third age and talk about the movies, but I want them to know there's more.
There's way more. So much more. Yeah.
And Hax Googled it all.
Yeah. I legitimately listening to the Silmarillion, I just had the Wikipedia up the entire time. Just like, okay, what is a Valar? Because they've said it 30 times and I keep forgetting. Like, yeah.
I know the names. Like, literally, do you know what? I need a Steve Konaki of the Silmarillion.
Oh my god, yeah.
My room has a map and just writes down all. He's related to him. He's related, like, this is the. Please, we need that when you read the Silmarillion. But don't give up. Most of these names never show up again, and they're like minor important. It's more the thought and the story of this. And don't think it's a religious work. It's not. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it my advice for reading the Silmarillion is have the Wikipedia and other resources. It's not explicitly needed, right? But
Helen.
yeah. And a big thing for me is like, the way that he refers to elves and man. It's not like an elf will never call another elf an elf, right? It's Quenya or something in their native tongue, and as such, like same with man. And like for me, when I figured that out, that was like, oh, okay, like he's immersive. Like we are in the perspective of the characters, and
Yay.
Yeah.
So epic. So you will definitely, and Hax, I do think you now you're hooked, and you will make content as well and read a lot, and yay, I love that. And you definitely have to come back. We will find another topic. There are so many topics we can talk about, and this was more like you read it for the first time. We just talked about all the good things.
100%,
and sometimes I like to talk about one specific topic or go through stuff, but I really enjoyed this because I do think in a way we understand each other by the way we think.
I think so too. Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my god, thank you for coming on. I'm a big fangirl of your content.
Likewise.
So I'll link everything down below, downstairs, as I always say. So thank you everybody for staying here with us, being patient and listening to me blabbering on and Hax asking questions. And yay, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody.